that this was not just one incident, but the culmination of many, which is exactly what prosecutors are going for. Now, that's the legal aspect. But let's get to film weapons and safety. We're going to go to film weapons safety expert Steve Wolf about what he makes of all this. So, Steve, good to have you on. Okay, now, what would you say, allegedly firing a blank at someone, using them as a line of sight, firing the weapon after yelling cut, is there ever a time that this would be defensible?
Yeah, absolutely not. This is all very reckless behavior, and it's maniacal, really. When a director yells cut, that's cut. You stop. You put your weapon down, you hand it to the armorer. You don't decide when the scene ends, and you certainly don't point guns at people under any circumstance. So, no defense for his behavior.
Now, Steve, I understand you have a prop with you that we're going to talk about with the million-dollar question, because this is the question I have for you. I want to play this. This is FBI firearms expert Bryce Ziegler talking about the only way the gun could go off without pulling the trigger. This is number one.
When this gun was received by the FBI, was it in proper working order?
Everything appeared to be operating correctly, so it functioned normally as it was designed.
In order for you to make the gun fire without pulling the trigger, when it was in the full cock position, you had to break it.
That's what I had to do in my lab. It would not fire without pulling the trigger in the full cock setting without being broken.
So let's be very, very clear about this. Is there any way that that gun could have gone off if Alec Baldwin was holding it where he didn't pull the trigger?
Well, that's a great question. And in my opinion, no, I side with the FBI on this. But I could understand why Baldwin might think that he didn't press the trigger. And that's because he was continually depressing the trigger. So if I may show you on this gun, it's upside down so that you can see exactly what's going on with this. So in his mind, if you pull the hammer back and then press the trigger, that's how you get the gun to fire. However, because this is such a short trigger pull here, and the gun is, it requires very little movement to disengage the sear, you could actually just be thinking that you're just resting your finger on there and pull it back and let it go, and it's going to fire. And you would not think that you pressed the trigger. But the fact of the matter is that you were maintaining constant pressure on the trigger the whole time. And that's why someone might say something like that, because he says, he just pulled the hammer back and let it go. Well, if his finger wasn't on the trigger, the hammer would just go back and stay there. But if his finger was on the trigger, it would come back and go forward. But I think too much is being made about whether he had his finger on the trigger, whether he pressed the trigger, because that's really only one of the errors. The one that's really listed in gun safety rules is don't point guns at people that you don't want to see a hole in. And there is no doubt that he did that. So that alone would be a basis for reckless endangerment charge.
I will tell you, look, he's definitely going to be able to put on a defense. I know he's putting on some he has a great legal team. Will put on some strong arguments. I think it's this other stuff that was allegedly happening before what happened to Ana Gutierrez-Reed that's the most problematic. If this was a one-and-done situation, he might not even been charged. We wouldn't see what we're having here. So it's all this other evidence I think is quite problematic. Steve Wolf, thanks so much for coming on and appreciate the demonstration.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.